whatever you're doing on a demo or presentation virtually, that's what your audience is doing. If you can get live, that is the preferred method of contact. The human face is what we're drawn to as other humans. You take that away and you really depersonalize the whole experience.
Hello, Sales Nation. I am Will Barron, host of the Salesman Podcast. And I want to say, hey, hello, and welcome to the people that are new to the show. So we're getting loads more downloads at the moment. You guys are making a huge effort to share it. I can see that over social. I'm jumping in where I can, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you spreading the word. And for anyone new who's come on board recently, hello and welcome. And hopefully you're going to get a lot out of the episodes that we've got in the archive and the new episodes that come out every single day. Today's episode in particular, we have Julie Hansen, and we're talking about the online demo or the demonstration, product demonstration that doesn't happen in person. So whether that's happening through Skype, whether that's happening through a specific platform that enables these kind of things, we're diving into why they work, why they're so useful, and how to improve on them. Some of this might make you slightly uncomfortable and challenge the way that you're selling at the moment. For example, very simply, and this seems like a no-brainer to me, but this is not a way that I've demonstrated products in the past in the previous roles I've been involved with, but just using a webcam when you're doing the presentation rather than clicking play and reading off a script. When you're on a webcam, you can obviously engage and interact with your prospect, and it seems like a no-brainer, but Julie has some thoughts on this, and that's one of the things we dive into in today's episode. Julie herself is an author of 2 books, Sales Presentations for Dummies, and also Act Like a Sales Pro. You can find out more about her over at performancesalesandtraining.com. And with that, let's jump into today's episode. Hi, Julie, and welcome to the Salesman Podcast.
Thank you, Will. Happy to be here.
You are more than welcome. Today we're going to talk about a topic which I think is going to be increasing in relevance over the next few years. And let's start the show with that and get your thoughts on it. And do you think that with the globalization of most industries, with, I guess, more decision makers who might perhaps be a few generations older than I'm being stereotypical here, but older than the salesperson themselves, who might be familiar with video presentations and Skype and be really comfortable with it, as they get more comfortable, the decision makers, do you feel like we're going to see more virtual presentations in B2B and less perhaps in-person presentations as time goes on? Absolutely,
a very significant trend. And add to that the fact that a lot of companies are tightening their budgets for travel. And, it's very expensive to get salespeople in front of a customer. That's a big investment. And sometimes the sale isn't at a point where it warrants that type of investment. And a lot of times that virtual presentation is that first introduction to the customer, and it's much more cost effective for sure. So it's very important. It's very important to do it well if that is your first engagement, especially.
And I don't know the answer to this question, so I'm intrigued. But you see, if you've got the two hands here, you've got an in-person interview. Obviously, it's a great opportunity to build rapport quickly. There's time either side of the interview generally that you can get to know the prospect and the person that you're dealing with. With a virtual sales presentation, you might not perhaps have that, but on the other hand, you've got technology, you've got tools, you've got every opportunity to do anything but a horrible slideshow presentation, which is what happens in most in-person presentations. So is one more effective than the other, or does it just depend on the person, the presentation, and everything else about it?
Are you comparing live to virtual as far as effectiveness?
Is one more effective than the other? And what I'm getting at is, in person, you've got lots of opportunities to build a stronger relationship. And tell me if I'm wrong. That's what I imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
But through the internet and a virtual one, you've got more tools, perhaps, because you're in control of it rather than you've rocked up at someone's office with a USB stick with a slideshow on.
Right. Well, I think that I always think if you can get live, that is the preferred method of contact. There's studies done on how people receive information from others. A percentage comes from the sound of your voice, from your body, and then from the words you say. And a huge amount, like 67%, comes from that physicality. And if you remove that physicality, or even put distance between you and the listener, that's a big barrier to overcome. And you can't read what the other prospect, what the prospect is, their reaction. So tools and technology are great, but a lot of times it's an illusion that you have control because you don't know what people are doing on the other side. I always tell salespeople, whatever you're doing on a demo or presentation virtually, that's what your audience is doing. If you're heating up coffee and you're checking your email and posting on LinkedIn, that's what your audience is doing the minute they're not engaged.
And you can inform me here as to the tools as well, but are there no tools, excuse me, where you're live on webcam and you're also doing a screen share or a presentation, so then you can monitor and go over a few of those intangibles that you mentioned then?
Sure. So a couple things. I always recommend to have a second computer set up so that you can, because of that time lag, you may be showing something and your audience is not quite seeing that slide yet or that screen. So having that in your periphery so you can judge where your audience is at. But also another thing you mentioned is the webcam, and using that in conjunction with your slides or with your software, using it very strategically, because what you really need to be aware of in any presentation is your job is to manage your audience's eyes. And you have this very small, limited screen, and it's very pricey real estate. So you have to be very strategic about what you want your audience to look at. So for instance, you don't want to have your webcam, your face, because the human face is the most compelling thing to another person. So if you're on there with a webcam and you've got a screen that you're trying to draw their attention to, some software process or slide, you're going to split their attention. So there are times where you want to have the webcam. There's times where you just want to have your screen or your slide.
And is it physically possible to do that through software? Again, I'm just not clued up on this.
Sure. On a lot of platforms like GoToMeeting, WebEx, you have the opportunity to turn on and off that webcam.
Okay, maybe a better question, Julie, is do salespeople leverage these tools to do that, or do they get lazy and just throw up a slide and talk in the background? Right. As you said then, drinking a cup of coffee and having a sandwich while they're going through it.
Right. I don't know that they're lazy, but the answer is no, they do not leverage these tools. And I say this based on experience. I work with thousands of salespeople, a lot in the technology industry, and when I bring up the suggestion that they use a webcam, first of all, I ask how many people use a webcam, and maybe 1 out of 20 does, and the rest are like, "Oh no, I couldn't." It's so shocking to me because
why is that?
Because they can't control. I hear all kinds of reasons. Well, I'm a lot of times I'm at home, and I'd have to get dressed up, and it's like, look at us, we're like from here up. We could have shorts and flip-flops on for all our audience knows.
Well,
right?
Look, it might not show up in the webcam you're seeing now, but
yes,
I've got my pajama bottoms on.
All right.
So
right.
So that explains that. Yeah. So, but what you're saying there is that
big, right? It's this big.
Of course.
So the same people that will post pictures of themselves all over the internet are just horrified at the thought of going on camera.
And let me get my head around this. The people that you're dealing with in the tech industry that are doing these presentations, are they what I would call a quote-unquote B2B sales professional, yes, or are they lead gen that would then pass it to a salesperson? No, they're B2B sales professionals. They're sales engineers, they're sales consultants. They have no excuses.
They got excuses.
But they shouldn't have any excuses, is what I mean. Right.
Well, I think we're just very hyper aware of how we look, and we put too much on that. I mean, the impact that it makes. I mean, the fact that you're doing these podcasts now, in video, says a lot. I think you've seen some results from that in terms of audience growth. It is like I said, the human face is what we're drawn to as other humans. You take that away and you really depersonalize the whole experience. Think about how easy it is if a salesperson calls you to just kind of dismiss them, maybe be rude. But if you're face to face, it's much more difficult. And for me, I always feel if I see someone else on a webcam doing, a web presentation or web demo for me, I feel this sense of obligation to pay attention. I know they can't see me, but it's subconscious, and I feel like there's a real person there. The biggest thing we have to overcome in a web presentation or a demo is that lack of physicality, that lack of presence. And the best way, the easiest way to make up for that is using your webcam. But that being said, a lot of people will choose not to do that. So I tell you, the people that do use it have a huge advantage because not that many people are using it.
Fantastic.
And you don't have to use it through the whole thing. Like I said, be strategic about it. Try and use it at the beginning when you talked about how in person it's much easier to establish relationships. So have it on in the beginning when people are joining and you're talking, and then you can turn it off and go to your slides, go to your software, and then turn it on when you're going to take questions. So, it doesn't have to be on the whole time because a lot of people, the beauty of doing virtual is you can have your notes and you can access those. And some people are worried about not having that crutch and they don't want people to see them fumbling through their, looking for things. And I get that. So just use it at a couple of points, beginning, closing, questions.
Okay, so that comes on to the actual structure of the presentation itself. I always structure my presentations, sales or otherwise, in the fashion of beginning, middle, and end. But then it has I can't remember what it's called now, but the plot of a storyline of you've got a hero, villain, something that the hero has to get over, and then a conclusion at the end where hopefully the hero does well.
Right.
That I just and again, tell me if I'm wrong, but I just do everything that way just because I know fundamentally it works on a deep level. It jumps into people's subconscious. They want to know more. They're intrigued. Is there a structure to put together the ultimate virtual sales presentation, or does it just depend on the product, the individual, and is there too many variables to make that kind of claim?
No, I think, and what you're talking about is that the hero's journey, and that's a great structure that works. We are familiar with it as humans, so we follow along. It has that that climactic ending, that point where the decision has to be made, so it has urgency in it. So it's a great structure. There's a lot of different structures, you're right. And in my book, I talk about one in particular that I think really lends itself to a persuasive presentation or demo. And ultimately, that's what our jobs are. We're not there just to entertain and, throw out information, but we want to persuade someone to take action or do something at the end. And a great proven structure for that is a 3-part structure, and it is basically a beginning, a middle, and end. And it is situation, conflict, resolution. Just like you said, the hero's journey could fall into that. So, what's the situation? What's the impact of your current situation having on your organization? What are some of the challenges you're facing? And the complication. Okay, so continuing to operate in this particular manner, is going to have some consequences. So let's explore that and some ways to, that we can help you overcome those. And then the resolution, of course, is how we get there, how we achieve those results.
Which is presumably you buy the product.
Yes. Otherwise, I'm not sure. You want to somehow come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on with all of this, and you've dove into it a little bit with being on camera and that putting your personality across and being a real human being at the other end of the presentation. Are there any other ways to grab and keep someone's attention, which perhaps might be different to a standard in-person presentation that you might give to an audience that you can do over video and virtually that you can't do in person? Sure.
Well, I think it's maybe even more important in a virtual demo to really quickly grab your audience's attention. Because, again, as humans, we kind of have this trigger reaction or subconscious reaction when we get in front of a screen to kind of sit back and be very passive, right? It's like, pass me the popcorn, I'm going to watch this guy do his demo. And we need to quickly break that pattern by making sure that they know this is interactive. And a lot of people in virtual presentations wait too long to interact. And I would say introduce it very early. Let them, establish what the rules are for this presentation, that you expect some interaction. I mean, you don't say that, but you throw out questions. You wait until you get an answer, because if you start answering all your own questions, you'll get nothing but crickets the rest of the time. So you introduce interaction early and get to the point quickly, because people are deciding in those first few seconds whether this is going to be something they want to really pay attention to, or they can kind of half listen to it. Oh, I've heard this before. This is going to be the same old thing. The first impressions are formed so quickly, like, 7 to 10 seconds. And people decide in that time, how they want to listen to you. That's the lens through which they're going to listen to you. And if they decide this is going to be boring, this is another, boring vendor presentation, then you have to spend the rest of the presentation overcoming that first impression. So that opening is so critical.
And are there any differences, and length will be part of this, I'm sure, between a presentation to a vendor, how you just described then, and a product demo or a product demonstration where you're going through features and benefits live on screen? Is there any difference between the structure or how they're presented, or how you grab attention and keep it between those two different formats?
Mm-hmm. Well, there is a danger in a demonstration to run a lot of processes together and really confuse your audience, make it appear way more complex than it probably is. So it's very important to break that up into chunks and to make sure that you sandwich every feature with context and value. Okay, I'm going to show you, this process. Why is this process important? Well, here's how you're currently doing this process. So I'm going to show you in 3 steps how we can do that much quicker, more efficiently. Here we go. Let's go into the software. Show them the software, come out of the software and say, okay, so what have we done? We've basically cut your time in half of doing this particular process. Now, let's go into the next process. Here's why that's important. So that really layering that demo with context and value and breaking it up into chunks is really important, because that's how we pay attention as humans. We don't have these super long attention spans anymore. In fact, when I was researching my book, I found out that in the last decade, people's attention spans have gone down like 50%. It's crazy.
Even more so, I would imagine, in that I struggle now to sit and read a book for an hour, even if I struggle to sit for a whole film without falling asleep in the middle of it.
Right? Or checking an email, or doing we're so used to this constant stimulation. And most presentations are so, still operating on these beliefs about people's behavior from 1980, right? Before they had smartphones and everything else to escape to.
And is that because the format of a presentation hasn't evolved fast enough? Or is that because the presenter is not good enough at what they're doing?
I think presenters are as good as the tools that they're given and the training that they have. And it's just presentations have not evolved. And, my goal is to evolve that presentation piece, because a lot of other areas have evolved significantly. Lead gen, challenger sale, all these different methodologies and strategies. But presentations, we still go in there and we give a company overview, and then, we talk about ourselves, and we take forever to get to the point. And it just, it doesn't work with the way today's audiences consume information.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so from a really practical standpoint then here, Julie, and so I like to have a couple of key takeaways that the people listening can take out of each episode that they listen to and put into practice right away today. Are there any, and again, other than, I keep coming back to the same thing of having your face and connecting with people as in person as you can over the virtual connection. Are there any other ways that you can keep the person engaged and stop them checking their phone or tweeting? Because it annoys me when it happens, but it's almost accepted in the corporate world that when someone presents, you're okay to check your emails. And
right.
That doesn't sit right with me. And I guess the responsibility is on the presenter. But are there any key ways to stop that happening when you're doing your presentations?
I think the biggest at fault there is that we as presenters don't create enough interest in what we're discussing. If it was really interesting, they wouldn't be doing that. And what I try to do and layer into presentations is building that curiosity, right? You're always selling the next minute. Okay, so what I'm going to show you in a minute is really going to change the way you do this particular process in your business. I'm really excited to show you because it's going to do A, B, and C. And at the end of this, I'm going to share with you some results that another customer got from, using this same solution that's really going to blow your mind. So I'm just ad-libbing there, but you're kind of, it's like a movie preview, right? It's like, stay tuned. We're going to see how to do this. Many times people in the opening give away the whole show, and all I have to do is kind of sort of pay attention because you just told me all the value and all about you and what we're going to see. So trying to make it interesting is not easy, but it's really important to create that intrigue and then and have some reveal points, like they do in a movie, like a twist in the plot. So setting up those moments in your presentation are important, and I stress having in a live presentation every 5 minutes or so having some kind of attention shift, whether it's asking questions, whether it's a video, whether it's engaging with the audience, having somebody write on a whiteboard. And I think in a virtual presentation, you have to even shorter that time, and every couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, have a poll, have people chat, write on the screen, use your tools. Even those simple things of using the pen on the tool and circling something, you've got a rapt audience. There's not much going on in that screen. So it's very compelling. It's like, we'll just sit there and watch that like it's the most interesting thing in the world because most people don't take advantage of those tools.
Amazing. I love the word you said then of sell the next minute. And this is something that I'm finding as I'm paying attention to it more in books that I'm reading. At the end of the double folded page, to encourage you to take that next page over, they'll generally the sentence will leave you hanging. Then at the end of every chapter, it's and then we're going to look into ... and goes on to the next chapter. I've never really thought about presentations in that manner, even though perhaps I've done it subconsciously in trying to just make it more exciting. But anything like that where it's step by step and has a process, I think is really valuable.
Right, that's a good example.
And with that, Julie, I've got a couple of questions I ask everyone that comes on the show.
Sure.
So I'll run through these now with you. The first one, who is the world's greatest salesperson?
Oh, gosh. I'm sure a lot of people say Steve Jobs, because he certainly had a great presentation style. I'm not so sure about him as a human being, but as we learn more. But I was thinking about this, and I think one of the greatest people of all times is Benjamin Franklin. And I'll tell you why. Because he had to sell the French on supporting the Americans to overcome the British. And it very much parallels like an enterprise sale. So he's working on an enterprise. He's got to get this country involved. And there are multiple decision makers. And you have to speak value to each decision maker, and it takes patience, and it's a long process. So very similar to the complex sale that a lot of enterprise sellers are involved with today, and obviously he did a successful job of that.
Nice. That is a new one on me. Steve Jobs comes up quite often, but yeah, I really enjoyed that answer, Julie. Next one. What motivates you to close deals?
Oh gosh, well, my kind of deals are the ones where I'm trying to help a company's sales team do better presentation. What really motivates me is I see the difference when salespeople can deliver a really dynamic, engaging presentation that helps them close deals. And I know that I've been in salespeople's shoes. I know what it's like to be up in front of an audience or behind a laptop and feel like people aren't paying attention, and they're you have a great product, but it's just not connecting. It's not being communicated. And they're just hungry for new tools, and they need new tools. So just being on this mission to help, support salespeople in this effort to adjust to all the changes that have happened with the buying audience.
And Julie, go one step deeper than that of, obviously you run your business and that, and you get money coming in from that. So that's all. Money's obviously a massive motivator for everyone until a certain point. Are you motivated by, you know, bringing in money to support your family, to you know, and it might not be money. I might be getting on the wrong end of the stick here, but is it that you can buy this or do these hobbies or do this traveling, as well as the, you know, helping individuals?
Right.
What's that perhaps deeper, more like personal level motivation that you have there?
You know, I mean, I'd love to travel more. You know, that's certainly a big motivation, is to have the money to do that. But I think, you know, I'm funny as a salesperson. I've been in sales my entire life. I love making money. That's great. I love, you know, the contest of it, the competition. But it's not, you know, it's like you said, it's not a huge motivator. It's not the motivator. I mean, I love sharing what I've found, because I, as a salesperson, struggled with a lot of the issues that I've found some techniques to help address. And it was very painful for me. When I first got in sales, I didn't think I was going to make it. And I'm pretty sure my manager didn't think I was going to make it. So it's just a gift to be able to have found my way and to share that with other people.
Good. Okay, good stuff. And final one for me, Julie. If you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give her to help her become better at sales?
I think I would tell my younger self to take more chances and break out of the box a little more. And I see this happening with a lot of younger people in sales. When they first get in, they're taught a certain way to do things, and that doesn't mean it's the right way to do it every time. And I find a lot of times when I'm coaching salespeople, I have to break these habits that they've been told for a long time to use. We had this idea maybe, and I think it's changing a little bit, but 20 years ago, that we had to speak, you know, in what I call this nice business mode. It's presenter mode. So today we're going to talk about, you know, X, Y, Z. But somehow we have these great personalities. Then we get into a presentation and we start talking like a librarian. And it's boring and it doesn't show your personality. So it took me a while to realize that wasn't serving me. And what I was doing was I was taking acting classes at the time, and that really helped me kind of explore these other facets of my personality and be able to bring those into the sales arena. And I found that's what people connect with, is your personality, not this idea of who you think a salesperson should be. And everybody's unique. So you can't tell someone to, you know, you have to act like this. It's all, these are some techniques. Let's mold your personality into this particular, you know, presentation.
And percentage-wise, and there's probably no data to back this up, so it's just your thoughts and opinions on it. How much of a good presentation is down to the individual putting across their personality, being authentic in front of the audience, all that kind of thing, versus the slides, the features and benefits, the company's kind of pitch that they're told to say? How much of it is it? Yeah, precisely. That's the best way of describing it.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's as products and solutions get more and more similar, as messaging from your competition sounds just like you, and that happens a lot, and prospects have trouble differentiating between your feature and somebody else's feature, and today you have the best feature and tomorrow it's somebody else. You can't rely on that. So that personal connection, what you bring to it, how you connect with your audience as you deliver that, how you impact them with that message and make it memorable, is going to make the difference probably 60, 70% of the time.
Amazing stuff. Julie, with that, why don't you tell us a little bit about where the audience can find out more about you, your books, and also your website as well?
Absolutely. So my website is performancesalesandtraining.com. And that's where you find lots of resources on how to give a better presentation. If you sign up for my newsletter, I send out a lot of the latest tips and techniques, from best practices, insights, acting, improv, a lot of great stuff that I find works and I have seen in practice. And You'll also find my book on there, Sales Presentations for Dummies, which is a real how-to guide from everything from planning that presentation or demo to telling stories to how you use your voice and your body. Or I have a chapter on web presenting, virtual presentations, demonstrating a product. And also my first book, Act Like a Sales Pro, is all about how to use acting and improv techniques in the sales process. So it expands on that topic if you're interested in that. But it's performancesalesandtraining.com.
Amazing stuff. We will link to all that in the show notes over at salesman.red. For anyone who is scribbling that down on the back of their hand as they're driving or at the gym or whatever they're doing at the moment as they listen to this. And with that, Julie, I want to thank you for your time. Genuinely, thank you for your time. And thank you for coming and joining us on the Salesman Podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, Will.
And there we have it. Thank you, Julie, for coming on the show. I massively appreciate your time, your insights. And it's an interesting one because these online sales demos, whether it's through video at the moment or perhaps even VR in the not too distant future, are going to become more and more commonplace over time. So I'm interested to learn more and to share this with you guys as well, Sales Nation. And with that, I'll speak with you all again tomorrow.